Hello, my name is Jiso and I'm reading Master Dōgen's Shōbōgenzō, and we're up to chapter what? Chapter 17, Hokke ten Hokke, the flower of Dharma turns the flower of Dharma. Now I kind of lost where I got up to yesterday because I had to dash out, so I'm just going to duck back to paragraph 62. When the mind is in the state of realization, we turn the flower of Dharma. Describes turning the flower of Dharma. That is to say, when the flower of Dharma has perfectly exhausted the energy with which it turns us, the energy as it is with which we turn ourselves will in turn be realized. This realization is to turn the flower of Dharma. Though the former turning is, even now, without cease, we reversely are naturally turning the flower of Dharma. Though we have not finished donkey business, horse business will still come in. Here there exists sole reliance on the one great purpose as real appearance at this place. The multitudes of the thousandfold world that spring out of the earth have long been great honoured saints of the flower of Dharma, but they spring out of the earth being turned by themselves, and they spring out of the earth being turned by circumstances. In turning the flower of Dharma, we should not only realize springing out of the earth. In turning the flower of Dharma, we should also realize springing out of space. We should know with the Buddha's wisdom not only earth and space, but also springing out of the flower of Dharma itself. In general, in the time of the flower of Dharma, inevitably the father is young and the son old. It is neither that the son is not the son, nor that the father is not the father. We should just learn that the son is old and the father young. Do not imitate the disbelief of the world and be surprised. Even the disbelief of the world is the time of the flower of Dharma. This being so, in turning the flower of Dharma, we should realize the one time in which the Buddha is living. Turned by disclosure, display, realization, and entering, we spring out of the earth. And turned by the Buddha's wisdom, we spring out of the earth. At the time of this turning, the flower of Dharma, mental realization exists as the flower of Dharma, and the flower of Dharma exists as mental realization. For another example, the meaning of the downward direction is just the inside of space. This downward and this space are just the turning of the flower of Dharma and are just the lifetime of the Buddha. We should realize in turning the flower of Dharma that the Buddha's lifetime, the flower of Dharma, the world of Dharma, and the wholehearted state are realized as downward and realized also as space. Thus, downward space describes just the realization of turning the flower of Dharma. In sum, at this moment, by turning the flower of Dharma, we can cause the three kinds of grass to exist. And by turning the flower of Dharma, we can cause the two kinds of trees to exist. We should not expect this to be a state of awareness, and we should not wonder whether it is a state without awareness. When we turn ourselves and initiate Bodhi, that is just the southern quarter. The realization of the truth is originally present on Vulture Peak, which convenes as an order in the southern quarter. Vulture Peak is always present in our turning the flower of Dharma. There are Buddha lands of the 10 directions which convene as an order in space, and there is an individual body turning the flower of Dharma. When we realize it, in turning the flower of Dharma, as already the Buddha lands of the 10 directions, there is no place into which an atom could enter. There is turning the flower of Dharma as matter just being the immaterial, which is beyond either disappearance or appearance. There is turning the flower of Dharma as the immaterial just being matter, which may be absence of life and death. We cannot call it being in the world, and how could it only be a process of extinction? When a person is a close friend to us, we are also a close friend to that person. We must not forget to bow and to work for a close friend. Therefore, we must take care to perfectly realize moments of giving the pearl in the top knot and of giving the pearl in the clothes. There is turning the flower of Dharma in the presence before the Buddha of a treasure stupa whose height is 500 yojana. There is turning the flower of Dharma in the Buddha sitting inside the stupa whose extent is 250 yojana. There is turning the flower of Dharma in springing out from the earth and abiding in the earth, in which state mind is without restriction and matter is without restriction. There is turning the flower of Dharma in springing out from the sky and abiding in the earth, which is restricted by the eyes and restricted by the body. Vulture Peak exists inside the stupa, and the treasure stupa exists on Vulture Peak. The treasure stupa is a treasure stupa in space, and space makes space for the treasure stupa. The external Buddha inside the stupa takes his seat alongside the Buddha of Vulture Peak, and the Buddha of Vulture Peak experiences the state of experience as the Buddha inside the stupa. When the Buddha of Vulture Peak enters the state of experience inside the stupa, while object and subject on Vulture Peak remain just as they are, he enters into the turning of the flower of Dharma. When the Buddha inside the stupa springs out on Vulture Peak, while still of the land of eternal Buddhas, while still long extinct, he springs out. Springing out and entering into the turning are not to be learned under common men and the two vehicles, but should follow turning of the flower of Dharma. External extinction is an ornament of real experience that adorns the state of Buddha. Inside the stupa, before the Buddha, the treasure stupa and space are not of Vulture Peak. They are not of the world of Dharma. They are not a halfway stage, and they are not of the whole world. Nor are they concerned with only a concrete place in the Dharma. They are simply different from thinking. There is turning the flower of Dharma either in manifesting the body of Buddha and preaching the Dharma for others, or in manifesting this body and preaching the Dharma for others. Or turning the flower of Dharma is the manifestation of Devadatta, or there is turning the flower of Dharma in the manifestation of to retreat also is fine. Do not always measure the waiting with palms held together and faces looking up as 60 minor kalpas. Even if the length of wholehearted waiting is condensed into just a few countless kalpas, still it will be impossible to fathom the Buddha wisdom. As how much Buddha wisdom should we see a wholehearted mind that is waiting? Do not see this turning the flower of Dharma only as the Bodhisattva way practiced in the past. Wherever the flower of Dharma is, a total order the virtue is. Wherever the flower of Dharma is a total order. Wherever the flower of Dharma is a total order, the virtue is that of turning the flower of Dharma, and it is expressed as the Tathagata preaches the great vehicle today. When the flower of Dharma just now is the flower of Dharma, it is neither sensed nor recognized, and at the same time it is beyond knowing and beyond understanding. This being so, 500 ink drop kalpas are a brief thousandth of an instant of turning the flower of Dharma. They are the Buddha's lifetime being proclaimed by each moment of red mind. In conclusion, in the hundreds of years since this sutra was transmitted into China to be turned as the flower of Dharma, very many people here and there have produced their commentaries and interpretations. Some, moreover, have attained the Dharma state of an eminent person by relying on this sutra. But no one has grasped the point of the flower of Dharma turning, or mastered the point of turning the flower of Dharma in the manner of our founding patriarch, the eternal Buddha of Sokai. Now that we have heard these points, and now that we have met it, we have experienced the meeting of eternal Buddha with eternal Buddha. How could this not be the land of eternal Buddhas? How joyful it is! From kalpa to kalpa is the flower of Dharma, and from noon to night is the flower of Dharma. because the flower of Dharma is from kalpa to kalpa, and because the flower of Dharma is from noon to night, even though our own body and mind grows strong and grows weak, it is just the flower of Dharma itself. The reality that exists as it is a treasure, is brightness, is a seat of truth, is wide, great, profound and eternal, is profound, great and everlasting, is mind in delusion, the flower of Dharma turning, and is mind in realization, turning the flower of Dharma, which is really just the flower of Dharma turning the flower of Dharma. When the mind is in the state of delusion, the flower of Dharma turns. When the mind is in the state of realization, we turn the flower of Dharma. If perfect realization can be like this, the flower of Dharma turns the flower of Dharma. When we serve offerings to it, venerate, honor, and praise it like this, the flower of Dharma is the flower of Dharma. Shōbōgenzō, Hokke ten Hokke. On a day of the summer retreat in the second year of Ninji, I have written this and presented it to Zen persona Etatsu. I am profoundly glad that he is going to leave home to practice the truth. Just to shave his head is a lovely fact in itself. To shave the head and to shave the head again, this is to be a true child of transcending family life. Leaving home today is the effects and results as they are of the energy as it is, which has turned the flower of Dharma hitherto. The flower of Dharma today will inevitably bear the flower of Dharma's flower of Dharma fruits. It is not Shakyamuni's flower of Dharma, and it is not the Buddha's flower of Dharma. It is the flower of Dharma of the flower of Dharma. Though form is as it is, our habitual turning of the flower of Dharma has been suspended in the state of neither sensing nor recognizing. But the flower of Dharma now is manifesting itself afresh in the state beyond knowing and beyond understanding. The past was exhalation and inhalation, and the present is in exhalation and inhalation. This we should maintain and rely upon as the flower of Dharma, which is too fine to think about. Written by the founder of Kannon Dori Koshi Horinji Temple, a Shramana who entered Sung China and received the transmission of Dharma, Dōgen, his written seal. The copying was completed at Hokke Temple at the beginning of spring in the third year of Kargen. Thank you for listening.